Just do your own thing. That's the way I say it.
Good, right? So cute. So cute. So I'm going to share a story with you of my own. And I'm going to encourage you to start sharing some stories with each other as well. So I was 21 years old. I'm just going to use this for a little bit. A while ago. And for the summer I was working in Alaska with this program where we were going to take kids outdoors, and we were doing community service, and it was a cross-cultural exchange, and my job was to be the outdoor education instructor. So I was going to be taking kids kayaking and backpacking, and as a whole staff, we were helping to have this experience for 30 teenagers that were from around the country. And as Brad and I, he was the director of the program, were driving from Anchorage to this teeny tiny town 6 hours away called Tok, a very tiny town. Anyone's been to Alaska? There was a lot of wilderness out there. We had a long drive, and we had this van all to ourselves. He asked me the question. He said, "So Julie, what's your story?" And as he asked that question, I thought about it, and I was thinking, he's not asking me this like it's an interview where there's right answers and there's wrong answers. He's just curious to get to know me, but I really didn't know what to say. So I said, "Brad, what do you mean?" And he said, "Well, you know, like, what makes you unique? What makes you you?" And I sat there and I thought about it, and I really had no idea what to say. So I said something that I have never said again since. And I said, "I'm not unique. I'm just like everybody else." Since I am no longer 21, I recognize that that was one of the most uninformed, arrogant things that I could have said. There are lots of very different versions of regular life. So Brad, he had the wisdom of age. He was in a different generation. He was 35, and he was very wise. So he said, "Okay, so let me get this straight, Julie. The high school friends that you were in school with back in Pennsylvania, are they also this summer teaching students to weld like you are? Are they also ice climbing? Are they also learning how to shoot a 30-06 rifle for the very first time, and then turning around and teaching those teenagers how to shoot these rifles, well, because it's an Alaskan pastime?" And I got his point. So now what I recognize is that I am unique, and that every one of you are unique. It's sometimes hard for us to recognize how unique we are when we are surrounded by people who do the same kind of thing that we do, or that like the same kinds of things we do. I was at a tax conference. I got to do a presentation to speak to a group of maybe 300 folks who were into taxes. And there's a type. They like to cross their T's and dot their I's. There were accountants and accounting assessors. And the same conversation came up, this whole like, I am not unique concept. And I looked out to the sea of them, and I was thinking, if you could only see what I see, you are unique. Most people I know run from taxes, but you all love it. And then a few months later, I got to speak at the Arizona Chief Firefighters Association. And then there I was again on the stage. This time it was a little bit bigger. I think there were like 450 people. And as I was looking out to the sea of folks, I was like, there is a type. But this time it was a little more physical. Like there were a whole lot of muscles. And I could tell as I was looking at them too, they were like tender and tough all combined as I was seeing their body language. And so I thought, oh, how interesting. So during the break, one of the chiefs, he came up to me and he said, "Julie, I want to teach you a little bit about firefighters." I was like, okay, please. And he said, "We are rebels." And I was like, oh, you mean like you challenge the status quo, you have a creative way of thinking? He was like, no. What I mean is that when everybody else is running away from the fire, we are running toward it and we love it. And I thought, you are unique. And then I kind of had this fantasy of if the whole tax conference went over to all the firefighters in their conference and they had like this standoff and there were one on one side and one on the other. All they would have to do is like look across the aisle and recognize just how unique they are. So I would like for you to lean into and think about how unique each of you are. And I'm going to ask for you to take a moment to do something you maybe haven't done before. And I'm going to ask for you to work here. Not do that. There we go. I'm going to ask for you to write a letter to yourself, just like you saw in the video, for while you age. So this is something that you are writing to yourself from your perspective now. So here it says, what should I remember as I age? Will you take a few minutes and write?